somebody who was in industry more.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good morning. We're doing our Cat TV program for December 2019, the last one this decade. And we're very privileged to have two experts here on uh, alternative energy. Is that what
Yeah,
it's
it's
basically
renewable
alternative
energy.
energy?
Yep.
Yes. And so we all know about Power Guru here and how much wonderful stuff is happening through that company. So I'll let Bima introduce our other guest here.
Sure.
And
Yeah, so my name is Bhima Netta. I'm the owner of Power Guru Solar Electric Systems. Sitting with me here is Hogan Sennett, who is the sales and marketing guru of Solar Electric Systems. So, yeah, so we've been in business now, I think about 12 years or so. And, we have close to 200 installations here in southern Vermont. And we are now embarking on in a couple of different areas. We are going to be doing community solar. We have been did a couple of community solar installations, but we'll be doing a couple of larger community solar projects in 2020. And so, and in addition to that, we are one of four solar installers in the state who are certified by Tesla to install Tesla Powerwall batteries.
oh wow.
So yeah, so
Uh-huh.
and we have a partnership with Green Mountain Power to install batteries through the Resilient Home program and through their
Mhm.
BYOD program, and so we are very proud of that. We've been doing quite a bit of work on that.
Mhm.
So I think that, in my opinion, that is the wave of the future. It's folks who want to reduce their carbon footprint, reduce their energy consumption, and have a source of renewable backup for their homes. That's what they would want to get solar and the Tesla batteries. So I think as we move forward, we'll be doing a lot of such installations.
Mhm. Great. So give us a little of your background, how you got
Sure.
into the
Renewable
yeah.
kind of side of the business. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was actually born and raised here in Bennington.
Oh.
I'm a graduate of Mount Anthony High School.
Oh, really?
I have an environmental science degree from the University of Vermont with a concentration in sustainability. So
Oh,
renewables,
wow.
weatherization, retrofits, things of that nature. Essentially trying to do more with less is
Uh-huh.
kind of a good way to think about it. I've been back in the area in Bennington, living in Bennington for almost 3 years now, and in the time frame between college and this current employment, I was working different jobs, but renewables and sustainability were always on the forefront of my thinking.
Mhm.
I'm excited to be a part of Power Guru. It's an established business here in southern Vermont that
Yeah.
has really taken a proactive approach towards renewables in the community. And I'm really excited for the community solar project that we'll be unveiling for 2020.
Yeah.
I think it's an unbelievable opportunity not only for those people that are considering solar or renewables, but I think it's a tremendous opportunity for the town of Bennington. I think this is a way for our community to come together and potentially set a example to other small towns in the state that can rely on renewables as a clean source of energy. So there will be more details to come, of course,
Yeah.
with the unveiling of that in 2020. But I think it's a great first step for the town of Bennington.
Mhm. Let's take a step back and just give me an idea of what some of the courses were you took at UVM that fit into the environmental.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. There was an extensive, the environmental program at the University of Vermont is one that's held in high regard across all academia. We've concentrated a lot of coursework in renewables, so not just solar, but also wind, hydro, and a number other of ways to become more efficient. I took quite a few science courses as well on the
Yeah.
biology side of things and a little bit on the physics side. and then also some business management courses as
Sure.
well, as this is an entire industry in itself as far as renewables. So specifically, I concentrated in weatherization, and I think that's a important factor that people need to consider when they are considering reducing their carbon footprint. You know, solar is just a piece of the overall puzzle, right? So if your home is not properly insulated, it's not air sealed in an appropriate way, you are essentially wasting energy, right? That
Sure.
energy is just essentially leaving your house, whether it's in the form of heat or electricity. So it's a culmination of various aspects that are going to lead us to that future of carbon reduction. So we work very closely with a number of other entities in the state, including Efficiency Vermont, as Bima mentioned, Green Mountain Power. But these entities offer homeowners and business owners great opportunities to reduce their carbon footprint and conserve their energy. So that to me is an exciting aspect of the renewable field, is that it's a culmination of a lot of different things coming together to create the puzzle. So it's an exciting time to also be in the renewable field. You know, as a young professional, the technology is developing at a rapid rate. It's becoming more affordable as well. So it's an exciting time to be in the industry, and I'm excited to bring the potential of renewables to the community that I grew up in.
Yeah. Bima, tell us a little bit more about the community centered program that you talked about.
Yeah,
how
so
it
you know,
works.
we are when we started when I started Power Guru in 2007 or thereabouts, you know, had a good idea that that we would be sort of this local resource of energy efficiency consulting and of installing renewables. That was the original goal. I worked for Efficiency Vermont. I think Hogan mentioned that.
Yeah.
So I worked with them, but at the same time I started Power Guru to help folks to reduce their carbon footprint, to reduce their energy consumption, to tighten up their homes, and to to save money. And so these what people may not realize is all of these can go together, and and they can go together in a way that will meet most, if not all, of homeowners out there in the state. Whatever the needs are, you can get them, you can meet them with energy efficiency and with renewables. So my background is I'm a PhD in engineering, in chemical engineering, and I worked in the chemical industry for many years.
Yeah.
I worked for United Technologies, I worked for General Electric, and there came a time when I wanted to branch out on my own. I became aware, increasingly aware, that in a way that we are not addressing this problem of climate change, and I can talk to you a little bit more about how I came to that awareness in a bit. But anyway, so around 2007 or so, I decided that I wanted to start my own company. And so I moved to Vermont and started and joined Efficiency Vermont and started Power Guru at the same time. And around 2013 or so, business had taken off. Solar business had taken off exponentially to the point where I could not, do two things
Right.
at the same time, and so I had to leave Efficiency Vermont. I still have many great friends over there, and I constantly refer Efficiency Vermont to folks who want to get energy efficiency incentives and rebates for
Oh, yeah.
and people may not be aware, and this is an important thing to point out, is that there are tremendous numbers of incentives for folks who want to reduce their energy consumption, to tighten up their homes. I think Hogan mentioned about weatherization, and so there are lots and lots of incentives for that, and Efficiency Vermont does a fantastic job of providing them to Vermonters. So that's its plug for efficiency of mind. But yeah, so so I worked with them till 2013, and subsequently I Power Guru was my full-time you know occupation. And around 2015, we started exploring whether uh, we can meet the needs of folks who want to do solar in a different way. And there are many homes here in the state where the roofs are too small
Yeah.
for solar, or they're facing the roof, the whole house is facing the wrong direction.
Sure.
It needs to be facing due south
Yeah.
ideally, or it may be facing east west. And the roof ridge is north south ridge with with the plains facing east west. That makes it less economical to do solar. Or there may be tremendous amount of shading
Yep.
with trees and so forth. And so or the roofs could be, and I mean there's many roofs here which are slate roofs, and we don't really install solar on slate.
Oh,
And so
right.
there are many folks
Right.
we realized who are being left out in the cold when they want to do solar.
Mhm.
So I started looking at ways that you could meet that. And I met with the folks, I think it was Boardman Hill Solar Farm,
Mm.
who was one of the pioneers of community solar here in Vermont.
Uh-huh.
And they themselves got their inspiration from, or rather they worked closely with Vermont Law School to develop the community solar concept.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that among the most progressive of the states to adopt community solar, Colorado and Vermont are the two states.
Really?
And
Wow.
it's hard to say where community solar was born. I think some folks think it's Colorado, but here in Vermont, community solar I think came into existence around 2011, 2012 or so.
Mhm.
And so there have been quite a bit of and quite a few community solar farms installed since then.
Mhm.
And so I studied that model a bit, and I thought that's something that's fantastic. It would meet the needs of folks who have all these issues with the roofs and so forth, and plus renters. If you're a
Right.
renter in a home
Mhm.
that you live in, and if you're renting a home, then you obviously cannot do solar in the home,
Yeah.
but you can get into community solar.
Uh-huh.
And so because of all of this, and there's a tremendous numbers of folks who fall into that category, we decided to
Yeah.
get into community solar.
Mm-hmm. So in community solar, you identify plots of land.
Yes.
How do you come up with these different spots?
Right. Yeah. So the way it works is that one thing I had to preface that with is that the way that you can do larger ground mount solar installations has changed quite a bit since 2017. And now if you want to do a larger solar installation, then you have to work very closely with the town.
Right.
The town of Bennington has an energy plan, and it designates certain sites as preferred sites to do solar in.
Uh-huh.
And so part of that is that we have, again, taking a step back, there are 3 categories of solar in Vermont.
Okay.
In category 1, this is all under 15 kilowatts or so, which is all residential installations.
Mhm.
These are ground mounts or roof mounts for homes
Mhm.
at the home site. So 15 kilowatts is a fairly small install.
Yeah.
And it can be easily installed in most people's backyards or on the roofs of their homes.
Yeah.
Then there is another category, 15 to 150 kilowatts, and even a 150 kilowatt is a relatively smaller install. You could do a 150 kilowatt in about half an acre of land or so, and it can be appropriately screened and sited so that it meets the town ordinances and the town requirements of the not impacting on the economic viability of the town and so forth. And but anything beyond 150 kilowatt, the 500 kilowatts, which is the third category of net metered solar projects, those can take a few acres of land, and those have there are specific areas where you can install those, and so you have to work closely with the community and with the town to find those areas and to install over there. So the way it works is that you find such an area, you work with the landowner to come up with a land lease agreement and so forth. Then and I think Hogan would be spearheading this effort as we go forward, which is to work closely with the community. We would be opening ourselves out and saying, hey, we are doing this this community solar installation. We would reach out to community members. We would hold and I guess you could jump in here if you want. You could hold informational sessions on exactly what that process entails, and community members can buy shares in the solar array, and so basically once they have enough shares sold, we can build the solar array and feed the power into the grid. Green Mountain Power would allocate the output of the solar array amongst the community members in proportion to their share of ownership into the utility accounts. And so in that regard, it's not that different from having solar at your home.
Yeah, right.
So one of the good things is that because these solar arrays, we mostly what we try to do is build a 150 kilowatt solar array, which is the category 2, and that's something that you can install and screen easily. And Hogan, you can talk a bit about the two solar arrays we're doing next year.
Yeah, it's really exciting actually. The Bennington Community Solar Project, which is what we're referring to, is actually a culmination of two separate installations. So one of the installations is actually going to be on the Bennington Mill, on the roof surface of the Bennington Mill, which is really exciting to utilize that, I would even argue, historic building here in Bennington. That has been part of my memory since living here my entire life. That we'll be able to utilize the roof space of that. It won't infringe on any type of visual. You'll hardly be able to see the system on top of that roof. But also, what that roof provides to us is optimal orientation as far as south facing. Very little to no shading as well, which is another factor. So those are things that we consider when going into a site, when we're looking at the optimal site. And that's the benefit of community solar, as Bhima touched on, is that these sites have been predetermined as the best location for sun exposure, essentially. So for those homeowners that are shaded or have slate roofs and want to be involved with solar, this gives them an opportunity to do so. The second part of the community solar installation will be actually on Shadowbrook Farm, which is towards the end of
Monument Avenue.
Exactly, so that's going to be a ground mount installation, which we're excited to have kind of a two-part installation to bring the total to just over 400 kilowatts. So we'll be able to service a large majority of not only commercial businesses but residences with that 400. And I think it's important too to stress what Bhima was referring to as far as the distribution of electricity. And that's through what's called net metering, which is a process that the state of Vermont has implemented, and that gives the ability for, let's say, somebody in Rutland to take advantage of a solar installation in Bennington. If you're on the if you're within the Green Mountain Power territory, we can allocate that electricity that's generated in Bennington anywhere within their territory. So hypothetically, you could service the entire state, parts of the entire state, as long as that account holder is on Green Mountain Power territory. So it really opens up through net metering Brattleboro, Rutland, Burlington, all the hubs can partake in this community solar installation and receive the benefits, even if you're 30 to 45 miles away from the actual site. So that's really exciting, and Green Mountain Power, as far as our utility, has really taken a proactive approach to how they can manage their grid and utilize the grid. They are arguably at the forefront of this concept. So it's been great to partner with such a utility that is forward thinking, and how we can service not only the community but also the electrical grid of Vermont. It's gonna, as I mentioned, a two-part. We have the roof mount and the ground mount, but it's all going to be bundled into one package that then can be distributed to all the shareholders that are participating in it.
Yeah, so every time I drive down East Road from past Willow Park, I look at the roof of the plumbing outfit there.
Oh yeah,
FW Web.
FW
Yep.
Web. Yeah,
So,
would be an unbelievable sight.
so what happens? Do they approach you, or do you approach them?
Well, there's a little bit there. In our experience, there's been a bit of both. You know, we have a number of commercial property owners that have expressed interest in not only solar for themselves and their business, but also for potentially being a host, if you will, of one of these community solar projects. We're really excited to work with John Goodrich with the Bennington Mill.
Right.
He's been great to work with and is really excited, and he's been a contributing member to this town for a long time, so we're excited to use his roof space to help further the community as well.
The other big flat roofs, of course, we think of the high school and the middle school. And
There is a lot of unbelievable potential out there.
Yeah.
So, you know, if anybody ever wants to, after viewing this, discuss any possibility, we're more than happy to discuss location, participation. You know, community solar, in my opinion, I believe is going to be the future of the solar industry. I really think that with the way that it's structured, and also the flexibility of community solar as well, you know, that's something that I think it's important to touch on. Generally speaking, with your average residential installation, the system will be performing for 25 plus years. Well, not everybody is intending to live in that particular home for 25 years.
Right.
So in our experience, solar installations have been considered an asset to a home on a resale, you know, angle, if you will. Some depends, I guess, who you're selling it to. But what community solar allows you to do is to be nimble with those shares. So you can sell shares back to the system if you were to turn your home into a seasonal home, let's say, and you need only half of what you originally purchased. You can sell it back. You can also buy more shares as well if there are shares available. So if you decide that you want to partake in this community solar project, and then at year 10 you want an electric vehicle, you can buy more shares to offset that electrical vehicle. So it gives the participant or the shareholder a little bit of flexibility and the ability to stay nimble, if you will, with regards to solar, where often on a resident level it's fixed. It's going to be there.
Plus, if you move anywhere in the GMP service territory, you can take your shares with you, because you'd essentially be on another utility account, and all we'd have to do is file a you know, I think Hogan mentioned this group net metering document that we'd have to file with GMP, and we'd say, okay, remove this account and put that account in. And so a resident of, you know, 200 Main Street, if he decides to move to Brattleboro, can say, okay, you know, I have about 10 kilowatts of solar shares. What do I do with them? Well, they can take them with them, and wherever the new utility account is, they can tell that to GMP, and the utility would allocate the output of the fraction of that output into their account.
So these people with trackers in the yard, is that
So yeah, so you know, I think that's interesting. You know, we can go a little bit more into how solar works, but trackers. We had looked into installing tracking systems. One of the things that happened in the last 10 years or so is that solar panel prices had dropped precipitously. And and solar arrays by themselves are zero maintenance. Once you install them,
Yeah.
there's nothing that you need to do. They will keep producing power.
Uh-huh.
So with a tracking system, what you're doing, and again, solar arrays, all solar arrays are fixed arrays. With the tracking system, what you're doing is the tracker essentially moves to point the array towards the sun.
Right.
You are adding a moving component into a
Oh, yes, yes. Okay.
into a robust and maintenance-free and stationary solar array. So that introduces maintenance issues. It introduces issues of
Oh,
service. There might be troubleshooting. It might be fixed in position at
Yeah.
inconvenient times of the year. So we looked into that. I looked into that for quite a bit, and then we decided not to pursue that because, again, the entire rationale of tracking systems is that they were devised or they were developed at a time when solar panels were expensive, and so
Oh, I see. Yeah.
you want to maximize the effectiveness of an expensive resource,
Sure.
and so you try to keep pointing it towards the location that makes the most production out of it. But now with the way with how much solar panel prices have dropped by, it doesn't make sense anymore to install this this system which introduces this additional complexity of of movement and little motors that can fail and so
Yeah.
forth. So if you need more solar, just add a couple more panels, and so it's not that expensive to add a few more in addition to what you have. So the delta, the price difference between having, say, a 10 or a 12 kilowatt system is not that tremendous. So so that's the reason why we moved away from that.
Yeah.
Another exciting kind of aspect of the solar module or panel development and technology is that these modules or these panels are becoming more powerful by the day almost, it seems. I mean, we are having a tremendous time keeping up with the technology because it's developing at such a rapid rate. So not only are they becoming more affordable, but they're also becoming more powerful. So that means that we're able to generate more electricity on a smaller footprint.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Oh.
So,
yeah.
Bima, 2010 time frame, what would you say the average watt?
Oh yeah, when I
module?
first started installing solar panels were about $2.50 a watt, which means that in those days, and Hogan touched on that, you could get a 200 watt solar panel for $2.50 a watt, which means it's about $500 per solar panel, right? Fast forward to 2019, now you can get a 375 watt solar panel for $1.10 a watt, which is like $400 for a 375 watt solar panel, whereas you are getting, in 2007, 2008, it was about $500 for a 200 watt or 190 watt solar panel. So it's been a tremendous increase in, both, as Hogan touched on, in both the energy density as well as a tremendous drop in the price of solar.
Which is extremely exciting as a solar installer, because for those customers that maybe have a good roof that's oriented in the right direction, but it's a small roof, right? But now we're able to put these higher watt rated or more powerful modules into that smaller space and still attain the energy that's
Exactly.
required.
Yep.
To kind of touch on some of the, we work with a number of different module brands in the industry.
Yeah,
There are a number of module brands across the industry. One that may be familiar to a lot of our viewers is LG. They make a number of electronic components, right? Your TV, your dishwasher. Well, they also manufacture solar panels as well, and it's actually exciting. They manufacture their solar panels for the North American market in Huntsville, Alabama. So that's a really nice story that this industry is putting Americans to work in these factories as well. They're producing their modules in the United States, which is something that we're very happy to be a partner with a company that does support the U.S. economy, in our opinion. But they also offer a unbelievable warranty for their modules. And these modules warranties vary on a brand to brand basis, but on average, your module will be warranted for 25 years. So that's something that is in a long-term investment that LG is standing behind as well. So these modules will be operational for a minimum of 25 years, although in our experience, their lifespan just keeps going and going and going. So that's a really exciting thing. And some people are a little concerned with how long, warranties are a part of any type of thing that you consider when you're buying something, whether it's a vehicle or a solar panel. Those warranties are out there in the market, and it certainly helps and gives the customer a little reassurance that their system will be operating for 25 plus years and backed by that warranty. So as I mentioned, it's just a really exciting time to be involved with the industry as it develops on a rapid basis. For 2020, actually, LG will be releasing 400 watt modules. So in 2010, we were at 280, and now here we are in 2020 at 400, 410. So it's a really exciting time.
So I'm wondering, well, how the Tesla battery relates to community.
Yeah. So I want to take a step back and say that the thing is that the world is changing. We folks who everybody is aware of climate change, and we need to do our best, and we are all trying to do everything that we can to be a part of the solution to climate change. Part of it is that we have a grid, an electric grid, which is somewhat fossil fuel intensive, and we are trying to get away from that, trying to reduce consumption of oil and natural gas and coal, primarily one of the big carbon emitters, to and as a percentage of the energy that is developed, electrical energy that is developed. And so and solar and wind are major components of how we can get away from having to use carbon intensive sources. But one of the other things that's important is that the grid, the electric grid, the electric distribution network, transmission, and so forth, that people take for granted. The power that's put out onto the grid changes all through the day and all through the year as a result of people's demands, as a result of home energy consumption, commercial, industrial energy consumption, and so forth. So the amount of electricity that's available for the on the grid is a function of what generators are putting energy into the grid and what consumers are drawing from it. And so the voltage on the grid or the demand on the grid varies all through the year. The result is that and when you take a step back and you think, okay, well, how about why don't we just do solar and wind and meet the energy needs of homes and businesses? But it doesn't quite work that way, because both solar and wind are not resources that can produce energy all through the day or all through night and day, obviously, because solar only works in the daytime, and wind is also a resource that's when the wind is blowing, then you have power, right? So so when you're putting those sources of power onto the grid, you have to realize also that the demand of consumers may not match up with the generation of power.
Sure.
And so because of that, utilities and have taken this stance of in some situations what they have done is they have developed, for homeowners, they have developed tiered structures of energy, so that different times of the day, the energy might be more expensive than at other times. We haven't taken that approach here in Vermont yet, but
Yeah.
who knows, it might happen. That's something that's very common in California
Yeah, right.
and other states where, metropolitan areas. What they do with commercial and industrial customers is they use utilities also charge for something called demand. So customers pay not just for energy but also for the peak of the power that they use on a 15-minute interval in a given month. So you have both energy charges and demand charges. So all that is to say that it's a electricity is a highly variable resource all through the day, and where batteries fit into the picture is that because it's so variable, there is these batteries and battery prices have come down dramatically. Paralleling what's been happening with solar panels, batteries are now incredibly inexpensive. They are also very, very, very reliable. Lithium-ion batteries have very high efficiencies, and so especially with Teslas, we can talk a little bit about that. But Tesla lithium-ion batteries are perhaps the least expensive lithium-ion batteries that you can get, even without incentives. So anyway, so batteries solve that additional part of the puzzle. Storage solves that part of the puzzle where you have this highly variable resource. How do you store energy, and how do you make use of that at times when you don't have the renewable energy on the grid? And so we think that batteries have taken off in such a big way, and we think that they will increasingly continue to be something that society will rely on to tide them through durations when there's not enough renewable energy on the grid. They produce energy when it's available, store it in a battery, and use it as and when it's required.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to emphasize that the battery and the idea of storage in culmination with solar is the piece of the puzzle that brings it all together. If you were to install, let's say, a solar array at your residence, and the power went out in your district, if you did not have a battery, you would still lose power, even though you have an electric generation array on your roof. Once the grid goes down, you are still out of power. So what the battery now allows the homeowner to do is to have that stored energy in that battery that they can draw from while their power is down, and allow their solar array to continually charge that storage as well.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's the other component of storage.
So
the
the
idea
power
that-
from your grid would go from into your house instead of into the grid.
Right, yeah. So what Hogan was pointing out is that so you have solar in your home, you have a battery, and you're connected to the grid, right? The solar would be offsetting your energy needs of the home because you're net metered.
Yeah.
Essentially, it would be offsetting your needs when you're drawing, you have any appliances running and so forth. And if you don't, then the solar ends up on the grid, and GMP allocates the output of that system back to the homeowner on a monthly basis. So that's how net metering works essentially. It's that any excess ends up on the grid, and GMP provides the credit back to the homeowners when their consumption exceeds their production. What Hogan was pointing is that when the power goes out, if you did not have a battery, and the power goes out on a home, and a home that has solar, now the solar by itself is not designed to and should not be putting any power into your home. And the reason is that because it's connected to the grid, if the grid goes down, then the solar by code and by design will disconnect from the grid and wait until the grid comes back. The reason is that you don't want to put power out there if somebody is working on the grid, right?
Right.
So that's why the solar will just disconnect and wait until it comes back. Now, if you had a battery And that's what Hogan was pointing to, is if you had a battery at your home and the grid and the power goes out,
Yeah.
now the solar will disconnect from the grid and power your home through your battery.
Oh, it just clicks into the battery.
Yep.
And that's part of the unbelievable technology that Tesla has developed.
Yeah.
Essentially, now these batteries can essentially communicate between solar arrays and the grid. So when the grid, when you lose power, the battery recognizes that and immediately kicks in to keep whatever loads you associate the battery with, while also being able to still talk to the solar array, saying, keep giving me the electricity,
Yeah.
because who knows how long the lights are going to stay off. You know, I mean, that's we see what's been happening in California with the fires and with the utilities out there essentially just shutting thousands of people off of electricity for safety purposes. If those people were to have a battery, they would still be able to keep their lights on essentially during that power outage. Now couple that with solar, now you're going to just be able to feed your battery for as long as needed essentially.
Yeah.
Because there is capacity, right? These batteries can only handle so much energy or
Yeah,
store so
sure.
much energy. But if that stored energy is being constantly recharged by a solar system, it's infinite, basically, how long you could keep your lights on during a power outage.
Yeah.
So it's a really exciting time as we start to see varying weather and you know what's happening in California. The large storm that came through Vermont in October that knocked out quite a bit of the central part of the state and the southern part of the state. We received quite a few phone calls after that storm
Yeah,
with questions about how they could potentially keep their lights on in the case of a power outage. So it's
So that'd be
exciting.
basically in place of a generator, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. One benefit of the solar batteries compared to, or excuse me, the Tesla batteries compared to a generator is they're completely silent. You don't have that constant humming.
Yeah.
There's no need to use fossil fuels to keep them going.
Yeah, right.
There's no maintenance required. You know, often generators require tuning once a year just to make sure that they're running at an optimal performance. And the Tesla batteries don't require any of that. So
No emissions, no noise.
right, no emissions,
Yep.
Yep.
no noise. So it's a much cleaner source of energy, in our opinion.
Yeah. So are there a number of Tesla batteries locally installed at this point, or?
Yeah, so we have, and I think mentioned to you that we are now one of 4 Tesla certified installers in the state. And GMP had partnered with Tesla in the past and deployed a number of Tesla batteries in one round of installations which took place a couple of years ago. And now they are deploying them through another round. And so we are part of this second round of Tesla installations. There must have been a few thousand Tesla batteries deployed in the first round. There'll be a few hundred more in this second round. And I think that GMP is working on a way to make this more sustainable in the future. So they are trying to introduce a tariff where folks can install, Tesla Powerwall, have Tesla Powerwall batteries installed, and get into a program which subsidizes their installation. And then part of what they've done in both these rounds is that they introduced these batteries to homeowners through a lease program.
Oh.
And so it's very, very affordable for folks to get something as technically advanced as a Tesla Powerwall.
Yeah.
And it's so cutting edge, and it's a beautiful battery to have something like that in your home for just like $30 a month,
Whoa.
over 10 years. And so, it's really, really inexpensive and a really high tech way to get insurance in case of an outage.
Yeah, one of the things that Bill McKibben was, I thought, centering on in his book Falter was the fact that you could have, out in the middle of the desert somewhere, you could have electronic devices picking up, all the stuff that you can on the internet, whereas before
Yeah.
that was impossible.
Right.
There was no power source there, but now, with these, cells, you can,
Right.
pick up enough power to, run electronic equipment anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things though is that the Tesla batteries themselves are not yet, and Tesla is working on it, are not yet rated for purely for off-grid application like cabins, remote cabins, and so forth.
Uh-huh.
They are more designed for grid-tied applications.
Mhm.
You can use them in a self-consumption mode. In other words, what you could do is run your home completely on the battery. So you would store the energy from the solar in the battery during the day when you're not at home and there's not much
Mhm.
running in your home. When you
Yeah.
come back in the evening, you can run off that battery.
Ah.
So you don't even have to use much of the grid at all.
Uh-huh.
So that's one mode. Another mode is you just leave the battery connected to the grid, keep it topped up, let the solar do net metering, which means that whatever solar produces is consumed by the home and excess ends up on the grid, and let the utility compensate you for this excess.
Yeah.
But then in that situation, the battery is there purely in backup mode. So if the power goes out, then the battery kicks in and powers
Yeah.
your home.
Mm-hmm.
So we have installed many off-grid systems though, but not with the Tesla Powerwalls.
Mm-hmm.
So these are systems like a cabin in the woods, hunting cabins and lodges and so forth, where
Yeah.
it's really really expensive to run distribution lines. The utility may charge thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars to run power lines to a
Oh, yeah.
home, and you can do an off-grid solar installation with a battery for much less cost than having to run all of that to the home.
Mm-hmm.
So we have done quite a few of those.
Yeah. So how what's the comparison between, say, using wind as compared to the solar?
Right, yeah. So one thing that happened is that solar is scalable in a way that wind is not.
Ah.
Because solar panels are modular, you just need to add more panels to do a bigger array. And so you can reduce the system size and still get very good economics with solar. Think of it this way, when you do say thousands of kilowatts, like megawatt scale solar installations, the cost could be $1 a watt. So a megawatt is a million watts, or 1,000 kilowatts. That's a megawatt.
Uh-huh.
And so when you have something that costs $1 a watt, that's about that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, as you scale it down to something like what somebody needs at your home, like a 5 kilowatt installation in your home may only cost $3 a watt, between $3 and $4 a watt, depending on whether it's a roof mount, ground mount, and so forth, right? So that so solar is pretty scalable, and it works as you scale it down. It works just the same way because you're just adding more panels, and the sun is an infinite resource,
Yeah.
and you can just point the panels to the sun and it'll produce energy.
Mm-hmm.
The trouble with wind is that it's not terribly scalable.
Oh.
So you can do large megawatt scale wind farms, or tens of megawatt scale wind farms, but you cannot, if you want to do a wind turbine that is something that a homeowner can use, say a 5 kilowatt wind turbine, they are A, not very efficient, and B, not very pretty inexpensive,
Yeah.
pretty expensive.
Yeah.
In other words, so for the most part, wind is a variable resource, and not every homeowner can have access to that, because you have to essentially build a really really tall wind tower and get up into the resource to put your wind turbine on it.
Oh, yeah.
So there's that issue. You don't, it's hard to build something that big and get into the resource.
Mm-hmm.
So that adds cost to it. And the other is there are many places where the resource is not good. Unlike sun, wind is not something that is available everywhere, all through the state or all through the country.
Right.
So
Right.
so that's why you install wind where it makes the most sense. Folks may not know there's tremendous corridor of wind energy in the Midwest, going from Nebraska down to Texas.
Yeah,
Tremendous,
that's-
tremendous numbers of wind farms all over there.
Yeah.
And all through these the plains over there.
Mhm.
So it makes a lot of sense to do that because the wind is a fairly constant resource,
Mhm.
and you can do these large installations that get up into the resource and produce energy, and wheel it, send it out into the population centers for less cost than if you have to do small wind turbines for residential customers.
Yeah. Mhm. So I'm sure there's been studies made about how much cloud cover affects different
Solar.
areas
Right. Yeah.
of solar.
Mm-hmm.
And also the other thing you think about this time of year is, well, what if those panels all got covered with snow?
Right. Right. Yeah.
What happens to that?
Yeah, so what's interesting is that we do have many cloudy days over here in Vermont,
Mhm.
obviously, and but when you look at many parts of the world where solar has been installed, for instance, in Germany, Germany has a tremendous amount of solar that's been installed over there,
Mhm.
and Germany is actually at a higher latitude than Vermont.
Oh yeah.
Vermont,
Huh.
if people may not know, but the way it works is Vermont is at the latitude of northern Italy.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So there is a fair bit of solar resource over here, and a way to quantify that is that you could say that you have about 4.5 equivalent hours of solar resource in Vermont compared per day, compared to
Yeah.
about 6.5 or so in Florida and California. So
Uh-huh.
it's not dramatically lower, so
Mhm.
it's still, and because solar is the system is inexpensive, the system pays itself off, and the energy that it produces and offsets your home's usage in about 8 to 10 years or so,
Oh.
even here in
Mm.
Vermont.
Hmm.
So so solar makes a lot of sense. And to touch on the point of snow, yes, okay, so snow is a concern over here.
Mhm.
When you do ground mount installations, you can take the snow off the solar panels.
Mhm.
But when you look at the bigger picture, let's say that you lost a whole month of production due to snow.
Oh.
Let's say you lost all of February due to snow,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
You'd only lose about 5% of the total annual production of the solar
Oh.
array.
Uh-huh.
And the big reason for that obviously is that solar produces a lot more in the summer months, almost 2.5 times more in the summer months than in the winter months.
Uh-huh.
So
I see.
so it's not going to be tremendously effective in the winter. So the fact that it's covered by snow doesn't really mean that you lose a lot of
Mhm.
resource because of that.
And we do actually, that's a common question.
Yeah.
What happens when it snows? And as Bima mentioned, those are our low production months, right? So
Sure.
we size systems appropriately, essentially to offset what you lose in the winter, you'll have in the summer. So that'll kind of net out. But and often in a lot of cases, and I have photos of installs that we've done, that the entire roof will be covered in snow, and then the solar panels will be exposed because they actually radiate a little bit of heat.
Yeah, I thought.
And depending on what pitch the roof is at, that they'll actually shed that snow just from heat radiating from the modules themselves. So I have a number of images of a residence and snow all around, and just you can just see the solar panels, and then the rest of the roof is covered in snow. So that's just an image that I share with people, and just to kind of gain them a little bit of confidence, because people are a little concerned about snow here in Vermont, obviously, but it's one of the very few issues, if you will, of energy loss.
Yeah, I think it seems to me I noticed somebody's roof this last storm where all the snow was up there and the panels were
exposed.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that's because that little heat radiation that they do put out. So it does melt quite a bit of it away.
Yeah.
And to kind of touch on a little bit of some of the other features of these modules, they're extremely lightweight given their size. I would say almost a piece of plywood, a sheet of plywood would probably weigh more. And they're extremely durable as well. They have a glass finish on the top that is hail rated. You know, any type
Wow.
of hail or anything of that nature isn't going to damage the modules or anything. And most of the racking systems that we use in the modules are rated for upwards of 180 miles per hour of wind.
Oh, wow.
So they're extremely strong, and
Yeah.
and they're extremely light as well. A number of homeowners are, if we're putting them on the roofs, are concerned about how much weight is being put on their roof with these panels,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah,
So
sure.
on average in the state of Vermont, your snow load rating is about 50 pounds per square foot.
Okay.
On average, our installations are about 4 pounds per square foot. So they're extremely light,
Yeah.
considering their size, and the load on the roof is not of concern as far as any structural issue as well. So
Yeah.
as far as attachment, I think is another kind of interesting technical point.
Sure.
How do you attach these to my roof?
Yeah.
There are a number, pretty much all solar racking systems and solar systems can be accommodated on all types of roof surface. Beema mentioned slate is kind of a no-go area,
Yeah,
and
sure.
we obviously have a lot of slate here in the state of Vermont, but you know, any type of asphalt shingle, there's a racking mechanism that essentially slides under the shingle itself. And a rafter bolt is attached to the rafter itself with a weather-tight gasket that have fail ratings of 1%. So your roof won't leak as well. But the best roof surface to install on is actually a standing seam metal roof.
Really?
And they have racking systems that actually clamp on to that
Oh, the
little
seam.
standing seam there, so there's no puncturing of your roof at all with the attachments. So those are just little details that we try to convey to customers. So don't think that you're limited because you have an asphalt roof or a standing seam roof. There's the technology is developed so that any roof can essentially be accommodated, except slate. Slate's kind of slate's kind of a tough one for sure.
Yeah, it's so, it's so funny. The one newer house there in North Bennington, I noticed, which was built by an architect. You know, he lives in there. Is standing seam, you know, from crown to
Yeah,
to the edge.
and you know, from a roof material perspective too, standing seam you'll get the best longevity out of.
Yeah.
Most asphalt shingles are warranted for 20 to 25 years. We're standing seam, you know, 30 to 40 years even. So if you are considering new construction or replacing your roof, the best bang for your buck may be standing seam, and then we can tie in solar much easier as well onto that.
Yeah, yeah, it's good to have those forethoughts before you do construction and all that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that's you know a conversation that we really like to have with homeowners as far as their age of roof.
Yeah.
You know, if you have asphalt shingles on your roof that have been there for, let's say, 13 years, 14 years, that are warranted for 25 years, I would hate to put a solar system on your roof that's going to be warranted for 25 years or
right.
past the lifespan of your shingles. So
Yeah.
then we would have to take the system off, replace the roof, and then put it back on. We certainly like to try to avoid that by installing on relatively new roofs. That way they can kind of coincide with one another as far as the warranty of the shingle and of the roof as well.
So I wonder, is there some kind of a special electric license that a person has to have to install these panels on a roof?
So here in Vermont, you don't have to have an electrical license to do solar, but what we have is something called NABCEP certification. NABCEP is North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, I think. I keep forgetting that.
Yeah.
But it's the acme of you know, the credentials for solar installation. We have a couple of folks who are NABCEP certified, and if you get that level of certification, it means that you know everything about solar installs. You know all the National Electrical Code requirements of doing solar installs. You know about regulations in the state. You know what technology is available and what makes the most sense to install solar. So we have among our team, we have 2 folks who are fully NABCEP certified, and we also have folks who have NABCEP entry-level certification who are progressing towards getting the full certification. So yeah, so if you are looking to for folks who are doing solar, you want to, look for folks, look to see if they have, this NABCEP certification.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, our hour has slipped by, and
Yes, yeah,
I thank you both
my pleasure.
Thank you.
enormously for this very, very enlightening program, and hopefully inspiring a lot of people to consider solar.
Right? Yep. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Dave.
you.
thank you.
Mhm.